From 20th level showdowns with demigods and artifacts to first level introductions for brand new players, today we're talking about one-shots. Hey everybody, it's Nick. Unfortunately, we are not back to playing D&D just yet. It's going to be a couple more weeks for all my players to come back in town. We'll get started and get going. So we're not doing campaign diaries and session recaps at this point. So I had some ideas about other things I could talk about, and one of those things is one-shots. I wanted to talk about how one-shots are kind of different from regular campaigns. I see it talked about a lot online, and I figured, what the heck, I got free time? Let's go ahead and talk about one-shots, because those are cool. And I figured they get used a lot and talked about a lot online, and I feel like people don't always get immediately how they are supposed to be used, how they can be used, things you can do with them, how they're different from a regular long-form campaign. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first off, what's the purpose of a one-shot? Well, you can do a lot of things with a one-shot. Sometimes you want to get to like level 20 play and experience that without skipping all the low to mid-level plays. So you get together with your regular group and you all roll up high-level characters and you do crazy things, and those can be really fun. I've done those in the past with my players, and I often use those to sort of do big historical events through the ancient history in my campaign to sort of explain why things are the way that they are now. And so there's some big cursed huge area. Let's do a 20th level one shot to explain why that area is cursed and how it got that way in the first place. And so players get to interact with deities and demigods and have artifacts and legendary items, and we just kind of skip straight to that part. And so I think those are a really interesting way to use one-shots for high-level play. I have also run mid to lowish to medium level one-shots because I thought a monster was cool and I hadn't gotten a chance to use it yet, like an aboleth. I ran like an 8th or 10th level one-shot where I got to use an aboleth because my players weren't going to the Underdark, and I feel like aboleth are usually in the Underdark, and I hadn't gotten to use one. I was like, this looks super cool, and I just wanted to use one. So you could just say, hey, mind flayers are dope, but your players don't want to go to the Underdark. Roll up a one-shot and just do a mind flayer themed one-shot, and that's a super cool way to get to try out and use some of those monsters that look neat, but when are you going to ever use these in the first place? One-shots are also a really good way to introduce new players to the game. So our group did this when we switched over to 5th edition a few years ago. I rolled up a second level one-shot for everybody just to get used to the feel and flavor and mechanics and how combat worked and how character sheets were laid out differently, and just like a really simple, I think it was actually just like one combat and it was like 2 hours at the most. Just a really simple short thing to say, let's introduce ourselves to this edition of the game just to kind of get everyone's feet wet. And actually, I just played in a one-shot last week, a week ago, something like that, where the DM, it was a Disney-themed one-shot, and so the DM created pre-gen characters based on characters we had said we wanted to play. So we had Belle and Rapunzel and Stitch and Baymax and Mulan and Quasimodo and Peter Pan all trying to save Mickey Mouse. It was actually really neat, and so it kind of got some of the players and their wives to show up. And normally I don't want to do like elves and D&D, but I'll play Peter Pan. Actually, Peter Pan was a dude, like Belle and Rapunzel were chicks. But either way, yeah, so that was really neat. You can do a lot of odd, themed, and flavorful things with one-shots that can make it for a different experience than you would get from a normal, serious, long-form kind of campaign that we often play. One-shots are really, really good for experiments. You got a cool monster that you want to try out, but don't know how to use it effectively? One-shot. Got a great character build that sounds neat, but you don't want to give up your main character? One-shots. Like, they can be used for so many different things. They're also so good for DM burnout. If you're the forever DM in your group, the thing that I have found is the most re-energizing to want to DM again is to play. And so you can just say, hey guys, I'm getting real drained. Can we take like a week off and one of you guys run a one-shot? I'll help you prep it if you want to, but it's really simple. It's not that hard. Can you just like do it for a week? Otherwise, we can't play again until I get to play because I'm really drained. And so it can be really re-energizing to get to be a player and get in the mind of a character and just play again. And see if one of your friends maybe catches the DM bug. I've done that for a few of my friends, and a one-shot was kind of coming together, and I was like, oh, sorry, I can't run it. Do you think you could run it? And now these players are incredibly competent DMs and really cool to get to watch them and learn and grow. And so that's a really cool experience. So one-shots have a lot of different purposes, and they can be used for a lot of different things. That's great. But also consider how they are different from a regular long-form campaign. You plan on continuing the story when you have a long-form campaign, but one-shots are usually, I have kind of an arc in mind, the end, that's it. And sometimes a one-shot can turn into a 2 or 3 shot. I would consider this, sort of all of these principles to be the same for if it takes 2 or 3 sessions. It's still in my head like a one-shot, like it's a small arc that we're just going to do this and move on. But also with something like that, you can be a little bit railroady, and it's kind of okay with a one-shot. The players know that when they sign up for a one-shot, when the NPC says, here's the quest, if they say no, then they just turned 3 or 4 or 6 hours of fun into 20 minutes of boredom because, well, that's what I had prepared, so I guess we're gonna go home now. So it's okay to railroad things a little bit and have a cutscene in mind. How I tend to think about one-shots and campaigns, this is not, I'm saying, prescriptive the way to do it, I'm just saying this is how I think about it, so maybe it'll be useful to you, maybe you think the opposite, that's fine. But in a long-form campaign, I often want to present the world and some options to players and say, hey, what do you do with it? And then what are the outcomes of your choices? Well, with a one-shot, I usually have a story in mind. I usually have an arc, I usually have a villain, I usually have an ending, I usually have how they're going to get there in mind. And so it's sort of, I'm letting my players have the freedom to operate within these little tiny bounds. But for the most part, we've got a schedule to keep, and we've got things to do, and you kind of have to do just these things. And players know that when they sign up for a one-shot, they know that you have one thing prepared, and we got to do that thing, and it's going to be cool, but it's not going to be total sandbox open world freedom because it's kind of a self-contained micro-adventure. And that's okay. So it's all right to be a little bit railroady in your one-shots and kind of keep people on a path towards the objective that you have set out for them. So another thing for one-shots is I almost always have the players start out already knowing each other. It can be fun in like a long-form campaign to you all meet in a tavern or you're all on the deck of the ship and you don't know each other and you start to introduce yourselves and role play and kind of figure out who we like and who we're on the same side of. But with a one-shot, you do not have time for that. You all know each other, it doesn't matter how, this is the quest. You've got things to do. Usually a one-shot is only going to be 2 or 3 encounters and some role-playing and like a puzzle, and that's it. And 3 encounters, in my experience, is kind of long for one-shot because everyone's still learning their characters, and usually they're not familiar with everything. If you have a bunch of veteran players playing first-level characters, then yeah, you can get through 3, probably 4, 5 combats. I mean, that'll kill them. But 3 or 4 or 5 combats in, a couple hours, no big deal. But if you have new players you're introducing, everyone's at 5th level, 8th level, 12th level, it can be harder to run through combat. So usually it's like 2 combats, a puzzle, and some RP. And that's about it for a one-shot. So I always make sure to start the players already on the same team. You already know each other. Let's get the show on the road. Most of the time, I'll actually start the players in the beginning of the conversation with the quest giver. So you all know each other, and you're outside the wizard's tower, and he opens the door to welcome you in and says, here's the quest. Another small tip. The rewards that your NPCs offer the players are allowed to be crazy because the players aren't ever going to get to use those things. Like you can say, hey, Paladin, do this cool thing, and I'll give you the Holy Avenger. Because the Paladins and the player is never going to get to be overpowered with that thing. It's just like, wow, that's crazy awesome. Hey, Rogue, I'm going to give you a Ring of Invisibility. Awesome. But so it's okay to have those rewards be a little bit crazy so the players are less incentivized to go like, hey, why should we do this thing? Well, I'll offer you 50,000 gold to go do this thing. All right, well, that's a great reason. I guess we're on the way now. So it's okay to be a little bit crazy with rewards because you can kind of know that players aren't going to use those rewards to break the game in any way. It's also okay to give your players cool things. It's okay to give your 3rd level paladin in a one-shot a Holy Avenger. Why? Because he can only break 1 session's worth of D&D, so it's not that big a deal to give them crazy cool powerful artifact items. You want to use the deck of many things, but you're worried that's going to break your campaign? One-shots. So it's okay to go a little nuts here. You want to have everyone start out with legendary items? Dope, go for it. You want to fight 3 Hydras at once? Awesome, that's cool. If you want to TPK everyone for story purposes? Sure, whatever, go for it. The big picture thing that I'm getting at here is there are no consequences in a one-shot. You don't have to clean up your mess next week. It's over. It's a one-shot. It's done. And so you don't have to worry about, oh no, is this going to be unbalancing? One of your players wants to use a crazy cool D&D wiki, which is garbage, don't use it, but D&D wiki class that they found? Sure, whatever, who cares? It's just a one-shot. You might have to worry about some of that stuff for a long-form campaign because you don't want your other players feeling overshadowed or whatever, but for 3 or 4 hours with your friends, who cares? It's not that big a deal. There's no consequences in a one-shot. Last big thing is level. If you're introducing brand new players to the game, I would recommend 5th level being the highest that you should start. 1st level if they're brand new to the concept of RPGs or D&D, or 3rd level if they're a little more comfortable, and maybe 5th level if they've played a different edition of D&D or they're really competent at various like heavy board games, things like that, might be alright. But beyond 5th level, it starts to get a little bit too much in my experience for brand new players. So 1st, 3rd, maybe 5th level for new players is a good place to start. However, if it's your normal group and they're all comfortable, heck, go as high as 20. It's kind of up to your taste at that point, so whatever you feel like doing. So those are just some thoughts that I had about one-shots, kind of a shortish video here on lessons I've learned, things I want to share with you guys. I hope you guys are running one-shots. I hope that you're having fun with them. It can be great to take a break from your normal campaign. You got a really serious, dramatic, intense campaign. Run like a silly, goofy one-shot to kind of let the steam off of a really tense situation or hard session that you've had in your campaign. It's okay to just say like, hey guys, let's run like a Disney themed one-shot or a one-shot where we all have wacky items or we all play monsters or just something crazy for a hot second. Let's play evil characters and just rampage for a second to take a breath from what just happened in the last campaign session. So I hope you guys are encouraged by that. I hope you learned a few things, and if you have questions, comments, things of your own, ideas for one-shots, things that you've used, one-shots you've run, I may run a one-shot in the next month or two, and so if you have ideas, things you've used that worked really well, throw them my way. I'm kind of open for ideas at this point. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.